Hello everyone. Today my topic is pollination. I am Romi Poddar, PGT Biology of Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan. So let us discuss about the topic pollination. First, we'll discuss about the definition of pollination. Pollination is the process of transfer of pollen grains from anther and to the stigma of the flower. Children, you have already studied about the types of pollination in your low classes. So what are the types? Self-pollination and cross-pollination. I have given one table over here to remember the pollination easily. So we can see here pollination is divided into autogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy/allogamy. We shall discuss the definition of autogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy/allogamy in the next slides. Now, what are the examples of autogamy? Pea, rice, wheat, etc. An example of geitonogamy, cucurbits. What do you mean by cucurbits? Cucurbits means like your pumpkin which has two types of flowers, one male flower and a female flower, but in the same plant. Okay, and coming to xenogamy, what is xenogamy? Xenogamy means cross pollination. So we have the examples: date palm, papaya, maize. When I was a child, my grandmother asked me, and she told that, do you know what is this papaya plant? So I said, yeah, this is a papaya plant which is bearing a fruit. Then she asked me, another papaya plant. Then why there is no papaya here? So I was thinking, what is this? Then she told me that papaya plants, there are two types, male plant and female plant. And only in the female plant we get fruits. It was so wonderful to know from my grandmother. Okay. Now, this autogamy and geitonogamy, these are two different types of self-pollination. Self-pollination and cross-pollination we are discussing. Now, let us discuss about advantages and disadvantages. Coming to advantages of self-pollination. First point, only one parent is required. So, in self-pollination, we need one parent, means one plant, and in this plant the flowers which are present, they are bisexual flowers. It means they have both male and female parts. Second point, offspring inherits its genes from parent plant. Hence, beneficial qualities are more likely to be passed down to the offspring. It means whatever character that plant is having, another plant, when the baby plants will have exactly the same characters as their parents. Third point, it does not depend on external factors. Example, insects or wind for pollination. Next point, anthers are close to the stigma of the same flower. Hence, there is a high possibility that self-pollination will occur. So, anther and stigma, they are very near to each other. That is the reason self-pollination occurs. Less pollen grains and energy is wasted is self-pollination compared to cross-pollination, because they are near to each other. The anther and stigma, they are near to each other. So, no need of wastage of energy, no need of production of large amount of pollen grains. Coming to disadvantages of self-pollination. First point, less varieties of offsprings are produced as the offspring's genes are similar to those of the parent plant. Therefore, the species is less adapted to changes in the environment. So, as there is negligible variation. So, the adaptation is not seen in self-pollination. Second point, continued self-pollination may lead to offspring being weaker, smaller, and less resistant to diseases. So, these are demerits. These are disadvantages of self-pollination. Now this is a wonderful diagram. You see, so bright, nice, and this is the diagram which is explaining self-pollination. As I told you that we'll discuss self-pollination, that is autogamy and geitonogamy, in this slide. Self-pollination is also known as autogamy, the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the same flower. If it is in the same flower, then it is autogamy, and if it is another flower born on the same plant, means two different flowers on the same plant, as we have discussed in the previous, that cucurbits, they have two types of flowers, male flowers and female flowers. So there will be transfer of pollen grains from male flower to the stigma of the female flower. So, and this is known as, these two, autogamy and geitonogamy, both are self-pollination. Examples: hibiscus is an example of hibiscus, which is also known as China rose, is an example of self-pollination. Coming to cross-pollination, okay. Now in cross-pollination, you can see we need two different plants. We need two different plants, and these two different plants should be having two different flowers. So the transfer will occur. Now here you can see that this, the male part, two flower, this is first flower, this is second flower. So from the first flower, the pollen grains are transferred to the stigma of the second flower. So the pollen grains produced in the second flower is not used. Here, the pollen grains which are produced inside the anther of the first flower is being transferred by butterflies to the stigma of the second flower. So we have here two different flowers of these two different flowers are born into different plants, but we have to remember they should be from the same species. So this is cross-pollination. So transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the two different flowers born into different plants of the same species is known as cross-pollination. Let us now discuss about differences between self-pollination and cross-pollination. We have discussed what is self-pollination, what is cross-pollination. Now, very important, we should know the difference to make the concept clear. The pollen grains from a flower are carried to the stigma of the same flower. And here the first point is, the pollen grains from a flower are carried to the stigma of different flower on other plant, but they should be from the same species. Second point, such flowers do not need any pollinating agent. This is the point, second point in self-pollination. No pollinating agent is required. But in cross-pollination, pollinating agents like wind, water, human beings, bees, birds, these are pollinating agents. Third point in self-pollination is less preferable from the genetic point of view, since there is no mixing of genes. There is no mixing of genes, so there is no variation. If there is no variation, then they cannot adapt to the changes in the environment. So that is the reason they are less preferred. Cross-pollination is more preferable from the genetic point of view, since new characters are being produced because they have variation. So these variations are encouraged by environment. The last topic is importance of cross-pollination. Okay. Now importance. There are various advantages and disadvantages. Let us first discuss about advantages of cross-pollination. First point is genetic recombination. Yes, because there is mixing of genes. Second, increase in adaptability. Obviously, when there is mixing of genes, there will be variation, and variation helps in adaptation. Third point, more resistant. So due to mixing of genes, it becomes more resistance. More seeds are produced, new and more variations, more yield than average. Then let us discuss what are the disadvantages. First point, plant have to produce large pollen grains and necessary structures. Second, factor of chance. It is a factor of chance. If you take the example of pine tree, which is very famous in hill station. So you will find in hill station, those who are staying in hill station, they must be aware that in during rainy season, in the water, there will be yellowish powder. So these are pollen grains of pine. So these pollens are carried by wind. So when from one plant to another, they have to travel long distance in order to pollinate. So that's the reason that they need a large amount of pollen, and it is by chance. There may be pollination, may not be pollination. If there is no wind, then there will not be any pollination. Then undesirable characters may arise. Less economical and spoilage of good character race. Spoilage of good character race. Thank you so much. I hope you liked my video.